board? Okay. Bush?
Yes.
Chambers?
Yes.
Dunn?
Here.
Gunma? Here. Lindsay?
Present.
Stefas?
Here.
Basting?
Here. Okay, board communications received. I have two. I'm not going to read it. It's from Liz Bennett and Chuck for her mother, thanking us for her plant. And then today, which thank God I opened my mail because I don't usually open it on Monday, we got a letter to the Board of Education in support of Mitch with names. Does anybody else have anything?
Yes. I do. At last month's meeting, I brought up the matter of a misuse of a personal cell phone by a student from the concerns of parents who had contacted me. The incident happened in early May 2018, and several parents made me aware of the incident in late June. And I presented the information on the incident to the school board during July's meeting in closed session. The misconduct and misinformation provided by outgoing superintendent was so different from what parents had reported. An independent investigation was agreed upon by the board. That report was conducted by a lawyer recommended by outgoing superintendent Luke Francois. The complete report was completed in time to be put on this month's meeting agenda. It is now August and school starts in 3 weeks. The report also needs to be addressed because of the questions proposed of the interim superintendent's leadership skills. Members Stefas and I requested to President Basting and outgoing superintendent the report from the investigation regarding the student's misuse of personal cell be put on this month's meeting agenda. After 3 to 4 requests, I was informed in an email by outgoing superintendent Luke Francois on Saturday, August 11th, that it could be put on the next meeting as a regular discussion item. I also believe this report reveals the improper, negligent behavior of the high school principal, school counselor, AD, and outgoing superintendent. The most disconcerting, and I believe maybe illegal, is a lack of documentation. Again, the transparency of the board is being put in a questionable position. If the Mineral Point School District cannot be responsible for conducting the proper protocol of an investigation, then it's board's job to do so. The most type of calls I receive from parents are about bullying and harassment. We may be number 2 rural school regarding academics, however, we are lacking in positive school culture. If the administration does not conduct reports according to state, federal, and school policy, then we as a board need to hold those accountable for not following these policies. Our main concern as a board is not only providing an academic culture, but more importantly, a safe, positive culture for our students. So there, it is not on the agenda.
I can back Kelly's claims up 3 times. Remember Basting, I asked you to put that on the agenda, this investigation, before the new school year starts. Asked Luke once via the phone, was told that we have a loaded agenda tonight and we didn't have time. Pretty serious allegations. And it needs to get looked at by the board. So that's on that. Had a parent contact me. Can somebody explain to me why we are taking AP tests the last day of school? Do we have anybody in the audience that can explain that?
That'd be something we could put on a future agenda as well. It's not marked on this agenda for discussion, so it would be inappropriate to have that discussion.
Again, I asked for that to be on the agenda, and the NBC did not make it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a simple question. Can somebody just answer? We answer questions all the time from citizens. Mitch, you have an
It
explanation?
would be inappropriate to discuss it without it being on the agenda there.
Is there something that we're trying to hide, Luke? I'm just
No,
curious.
I did answer you directly about this matter, but if you want to put it on the agenda, have a public discussion about it, we should put that on a future agenda.
With that said, I think the board, with the matter at hand, should call a meeting tomorrow night to talk about both this investigation and then that little question that I have also. And we do that before we go into closed session to negotiate the superintendent's contract. Therefore, I make a motion that we remove the closed session at 5:30. We move the closed session and the approval of the superintendent's contract to tomorrow night at 6:30.
A second.
because I believe that I sent you an email telling you that we were going to discuss investigation.
It's not on the agenda, Jeff, and we got
It
yelled
was
at
going
last
to be
meeting
in closed session.
by Andy for we're talking about things that's not listed on the agenda. We can't do that, Jeff.
After conferring with the lawyer, we had every right to do it in closed session.
Without it
Because
listed on the agenda.
deals with personnel.
So how do we let the public know this investigation? We're gonna spend upwards of.
I'm not saying that
I'm not
we're
saying,
not
I
doing it in
don't
the
even know the
future.
amount that we're gonna get charged from our lawyers in Madison.
This didn't cost us a dime, because this is under WASB. It was Bob Butler. So,
The Shayna Lewis deal didn't cost us a dime.
no, I said my call to Bob Butler didn't cost us a dime. I don't know what the investigator is going to charge us. That's another issue. We do have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion?
I'd like to hear some discussion from the board on this. Where we stand.
I totally agree that the results of the investigation should be discussed. I feel like if we're going to finalize a contract for someone that was involved in the investigation, I think that going to closed session to discuss those in terms of performance and how the investigation weighs on the potential of going through with the contract, I think is appropriate for closed session. So I was under the assumption that that was going to be part of the discussion in closed session regarding whether a final decision on this contract was going to happen or not. So as long as
I was under the same understanding.
As long as, Luke, as long as you feel like it's appropriate to discuss it under closed session, I mean, then I'm okay with that, but yeah.
How do we report our findings to the public then? The findings that we can report.
I think one way would be through the action the board takes. You certainly have, and it is posted accordingly, that you can talk about the employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation and the data related to that. So any discussion about performance would be very much permissible in closed session, both at the beginning and at the end of the meeting for another employee that is identified. So there are opportunities on the agenda to talk about the performance as it relates to matters. But to have public conversations about people's performance or evaluation would be inappropriate.
How about all involved?
We don't have the agenda listed for all involved, but we do have for the 2 out of the 4 as requested by the board and approved by Member Basti.
How about the safety of our students? School started in 3 weeks.
So can there be a special meeting tomorrow night involved for the other 2?
There can be typically, you want to give at least 24 hours notice, and it's preferred to be 48 hours just for public notice for people that may want to attend. So I would suggest to try to get out 48 hours unless the
For
board feels it's
Wednesday night
not.
then?
It would be a better posting, I believe, just to give more people awareness.
Okay, any other comments? Let's call the question, Angie, please.
So we're talking Wednesday night instead of tomorrow. Correct. All right, I'll change my motion. The Wednesday night,
For the 2 or the 4?
for all 4 in the contract.
So how do you want this stated? Because I've got it remove closed session from tonight's agenda, move it to Wednesday night at 6:30.
That is exactly my motion.
Just a procedural piece was Kelly's motion, your second, I believe.
No.
Was it the other way around? Okay, thank you.
Approval of superintendent's contract, also move to Wednesday night then. Over the period, we have a lot of public and probably a lot of comment, and that'll use up the 45 minutes we have left for the regular meeting.
So just a point of clarification, sorry Larry. So we're going to discuss the results of the investigation in closed session and then discuss the contract at that point, once that's all been discussed. And we are saying that we can't discuss the full scope of the investigation in closed session because that's not on the agenda fully.
Correct.
But we can only discuss what's pertinent to Mitch's contract.
Correct.
Okay?
And we will still do closed session if this doesn't pass. But if it passes, then we'll wait till Wednesday night.
I have clarification. I mean, it all surrounds performance. Is any of that open session material anyway?
Performance of employees, most likely no.
Okay, so if our effort is to attempt to inform the public of poor performance, that's not
Probably not going
an
to be
open session.
agenda. Correct.
For the same reason evaluations aren't shared, et cetera.
Correct, yes. So the
Okay.
question is, why not 24 hours versus 48? Is it because it's
The
going to be a
question
closed
is, the
session
intent of
anyway?
the meeting is to inform the public, and it's going to all be closed session.
Correct.
Is
It seems like a
necessary.
moot point because it's going to be closed session, but I just go back to the language with regards to the open meetings law that says whenever possible, 48 hours notice is
Right.
preferred.
Okay. I'm
Unless
just-
an emergency would warrant the 24 hours, this board would determine if this is an emergency or not.
Just clarifying that, thank you.
Any other comments?
Is there any part of the investigations report that once issues related to performance are kind of discussed and resolved, are there parts of the report that can be made public?
Through open meetings requests, the document can be made public, but it would have redacted information that would
Right.
protect the identity of those that are involved.
Okay.
Okay, Angie. Question, please.
So the motion is to remove closed session from tonight's agenda and move to Wednesday night, including the approval of the superintendent's contract. Stefas?
Yes.
Bush?
No.
Chambers?
Yes.
Dunn?
Yes.
Gunlaw?
Yes.
Lindsay?
Yes.
Basting?
No. Okay, so there will be no closed session at the start. So do we have some citizens' comments?
There's two on here.
Sure. Thank you. Sherry Swingen.
Sherry Swingen, 735 Church Street. In the dictionary, interim is stated as temporary. Mitch Wainwright is nothing to do with temporary. He's lived in this district for years. His children went through school here. We have a history of hiring superintendents from out of the district. They come, we pay for their higher education, and they go off to a bigger stepping stone. And Mitch Wainwright does not do that, and Mineral Point is the biggest and the best anyway. So he's here. And he watches out for his students and his staff. Thank you.
Sherry. Bill Ottaway.
Bill Ottaway, 4756 Rock Ranch Road. I'm a firm believer of promoting within. Our police department, we've had 2 chiefs in 47 years. And I think we have a great department, I think we have a great school. I just feel that promoting within is the right thing to do in this case.
Thank you. Anybody else that would like to speak?
I wasn't here in time to, but Tom Steger, 840 12th Street, Fenimore. From the standpoint of our staff, I think we all need to know what our future holds. Kids are coming in 3 weeks, and there's a level of uncertainty that is not a great way to start a school year. We need to know where our future lies, and from all the staff that I have talked to, we feel confident that our future lies best underneath Mitch Wainwright as our leader. Let's remove this interim tag, let's hire this man, and let's continue our journey forward and create a great educational path for our kids. Thank you.
for action scheduled for 6:30 PM. I do think it would be wise for those that are just coming for the regular portion of the meeting to pause at this time and take a 45-minute recess and start on time. I don't know if there anybody that was going to come to listen to the meeting that's scheduled to start at 6:30 regular time, but I think in an effort of being transparent and being a good public steward of the schools, it would be best to pause at this time.
Is it safe to assume item 5 and 7?
Item 5 would probably be tabled at this point. For the action, moving into item 7. Is that under action, Andy?
I think it's discussion.
Oh, discussion, thank you.
It's the high school principal.
Yeah, so that would obviously be related to, I guess the board can decide if they want to still have a conversation around the principal with the pending meeting of the superintendency. You could certainly still have a discussion about that or table. That's the board decision.
So, what's your pleasure? We want a nice thing to knock off in the morning.
Jess?
Let's just ask the public, we got 45 minutes, let's hear from them. What, Jeff, why do
Can
you?
I I decided I'm going to say a little something. I obviously don't know the situation, don't know the severity of it, but I'll tell you, I have made mistakes in my career, believe it or not. And thank goodness I had people around me that understood that we can all make mistakes and move forward from that and learn from them. And that's probably the best thing that I've learned from these people in this room, including you guys, is we have to be allowed to move forward, and some of that moving forward, you do trip. So whatever this situation is, we must remember and not take one situation and make it what our school is all about. I mean, we obviously need to fix it and move forward, but moving forward is where we want to be. Just wanted to be able to say that, because thank goodness I've had bosses and people who have understood that we all make mistakes, and we hopefully can fix it for the next time. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
I wouldn't mind talking about the high school principal duties. If there's any feedback from the community specifically about, if Mr. Wainwright is named at least for an interim year, what you'd like to see happen for kind of an interim principal position.
Anybody have any thoughts? I was just trying to get you. Say something. So, Doc, do you want to start the conversation?
We're just going to go forward with
Items on the agenda, I would suggest that you wait and pick back up at 6:30.
Even the high school position.
Yeah, it's noted in the agenda under information discussion, which comes after the 6:30 start. So the board can decide it's your meeting. I would recommend to those that might be coming after the closed session to just pause. But, yeah.
Just a thought. I'm Scott Schmitz, 1251 West Lake Road. Grew up here my whole life, left, came back. We're looking for a superintendent right now, correct? This guy's been here 7 years. And nobody's had a question on what he's been doing. So why wouldn't it make sense to make him our superintendent, put the intern portion of it at the principal if he does both jobs? We have enough people with administration degrees as teachers that I would think would step up during the year, if he needed help at the at the principal level, be it a discipline thing if he's out of the district, you'd say, hey, means you got your administration degree, I'm gonna be gone, Ms. Dahl's gonna be gone. If something happens, you're gonna be in charge for the day. I mean, I don't want the principal's job in any means, but he's a good enough friend of mine. I've worked for him. I respect the man. I would help him out. I think all this discussion and everything else is just ripping everybody apart. And like Tom said, we got kids coming in 3 weeks, and we don't have a leader yet. What are we saying to our kids when we can't even put somebody in charge right away? We waffle back and forth, back and forth. Let's make a decision. Help the man out if he needs help. We have a staff that's tight, that will support each other. We will support him. We will support you guys in your decision. But let's make a decision and make the right one by making him superintendent, put an interim on the principal. That's not quite as important at this point. He knows how to be a principal. And I said, we can help out. And if we feel that he can't do both jobs, then next year, let's hire a principal then.
Thanks, Scott.
Could, yeah, we can get to that part of the agenda.
Since we have a half hour, does anybody object to going into closed session to
This will be the item at the end of the agenda.
and performance evaluation of school counselor position over which the government body has jurisdiction? Anybody opposed?
If it's legal, I don't have no problem.
I think if the board can reorganize the agenda, you know, obviously this is something that won't impact the start time. I would just suggest that if we're still in closed session at 6:30, we pause and go back into closed session at the end for those that might be coming in at 6:30.
Agree. So do we have a motion to that effect?
I'll motion. On the closed session.
Jeff, before you,
Or 7.
I don't know if there's a feeling that I'm trying to hide from something or hide something. And I welcome the opportunity to discuss my role in the investigation. I feel I have nothing to hide and would gladly answer any questions that you as board members have of me at any time.
Could we keep Mitch in closed session with us for the
For the,
counselor, whatever's on the agenda?
Absolutely.
Would you please say it?
Okay.
And I feel the same way too.
I have a
I
motion.
have nothing to hide.
Do we have a second?
I'll second. Yes.
Gunlaw,
yes.
Lindsay,
Yes.
Stefas,
Yes.
Bush,
Yes.
Chambers,
Yes.
Dunn,
Yes.
Basting.
Yes. Can we get to this, or do you want to talk now?
How long is that gonna be?
Might be a little bit, so if you want to speak
Like
now.
half an hour or?
Probably.
Yeah, that's okay.
You sure? Because otherwise you can talk.
Oh, that's all right.
Okay. All right. Let's move into approval of minutes. You want to make a motion?
Move the minutes from 7:16 and 7:22.
Somebody want a second?
Second.
Any discussion? By roll, can we?
Either way.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Okay, let's move into the middle school handbook.
The Yeah, for discussion, I just don't know if you want to keep that in the queue.
Okay. Well, we did kind of talk about this before, but is there anybody that wants to comment on the high school principal position? Anybody on the board?
Well, I mean, there was a suggestion from the public that maybe whoever the interim superintendent is, or whoever this year's superintendent is, also be carry high school principal duties, and then have staff fill in on an as-needed basis if the superintendent is not around. You know, I'm assuming the staff are comfortable with that. I'd like to kind of just see if everyone feels comfortable with, you know, the superintendent also carrying principal duties for a year, as long as they're in the building, or if there's other options available to handle, you know, part of the principal duties, you know, throughout most of the year, especially mentioning that some staff have some principal licensing and training. So, and Luke, if you have any recommendations too from your perspective, Anna.
I do think you have minimally 4 qualified administrators or teachers with administrative licensures that could support in some level. Without having conversations with all 4, I couldn't speak who might or might not want to fulfill some of those responsibilities. The possibility is there to do it by committee. It certainly can be done under the direction of Mitch, who understands the roles and responsibilities. The other option would be to post it and see who expresses an interest. You know, again, as an interim position, would allow somebody to apply for it and interview for it, and it potentially could be one person, then you try to backfill a teaching position if you want to keep it just as an internal only posting. You could post it internally and externally. There would be most likely candidates that have the ability to come in for a year and be an interim principal that has principal experience in other districts. But obviously the downside is they don't know Mineral Point specifically in their systems and ways, but they do have leadership in other buildings that I think could be of interest if you want to go that way. So my perspective would be that a full-time superintendent and a full-time principal is a tough position to marry together and conduct the entire roles and responsibilities effectively in either camp. And I think it's more challenging as a first-year superintendent than it might be in a 7th-year superintendent. So I think there's a lot of opportunity to grow and learn the superintendency role, and I just would be fearful that neither one would be done as well as maybe they are currently being done, because you're trying to balance 2 hats. So that would be my offering for the board, and I'd be interested to know what your thinking is.
I would personally like to see the duties assigned as opposed to a fill-in basis. You know, I think superintendent is a time-consuming position, and if it's, you know, if there's nobody to answer to because somebody was filling in, you know, if the ball gets dropped and somebody was going to help, you know, whose responsibility is it? I think we had one school psych and director of pupil services that did both, and now we have 2. There may be some opportunity there to use those 2. We have very talented people in the district. I think if we go with Mitch, I think we could direct him to assign specific duties of the principal position to other people for a year. It sounds like everyone is willing to lend a hand for a year in support of Mitch. That being said, if we move forward in the direction that we are currently moving forward, that would obviously change if the situation changes.
I'm of the opinion that the interim superintendent for this year handle both positions, and I'm with you, Andy, name an associate principal, whether it's one of the teachers, school site, whoever it is, just name them, and then get them the, if they gotta pull out of their classroom, get them the assistance they need to cover for an hour or whatever on an as-needed basis. We have good qualified candidates in this position.
We have, is it 4 or 7 who have principal licenses?
I am aware of 4 teachers for certain that has administrative license that help me out. Those
And 2 more principals.
and 2 more principals.
So just 2 principal licenses
I-
and 4 administrators?
Yeah,
Are
I'm
they
aware of-
separated, how the license ranked? How the
Yeah.
licensing tiered?
So I'm aware that Scott Schmitz, Matt Austin, Al Carey, and Quinn Schultz all contain an administrator license and are eligible to be a principal right now at this time without any emergency licensure needed. They're all licensed and able to serve in that position. Inside the building, you would also have Vicki Dahl as a certified principal. Mitch Wainwright would retain his principalship. And then Matt Renwick in the other building would be a licensed principal. I am not aware of any other elementary, middle school staff. Help me out if I'm missing anybody.
Ruth McGraw has hers,
Thank you.
Cindy Northam has hers, Ben McWilliams has his.
Thank
So
you.
there are.
My apologies for missing it.
Nope.
Thank you.
And I can assist with high school discipline if needed.
Let me see. Oh, you mentioned Director of Pupil Services, right, as potentially
Yeah,
carrying some duties?
just because that was one person
Right,
prior.
and
I
now
know they're
there's 2
both
people.
new to the district and there'll be a learning curve, but I mean, if one person was doing both jobs prior, there may be potential there to add a duty.
And that would be allowable based on that person's licensure?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. You would probably issue a partial contract to recognize them in that role of responsibility to be able to supervise or evaluate. So you might want to amend the contract to be 20% administrator and 80% teacher or something of that order.
I don't think it should be done by committee. I think there should be definitely one person appointed as the principal in this time period.
Would doing that, like say we hire, let's say we name someone internally to do high principal positions, and let's say they're a current teacher, who's now got a full class load.
Yeah.
So if we were to do that, then we would have to backfill that teaching position, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
But is it reasonable to ask a teacher to share administrative duties, as an associate or a co-associate or something like that, without having to hire a new teacher or be able to get the classes taught? Or is that?
Yeah, for each person,
Pushing
the
it,
answer might be different. Some that are on a career path toward administrative work in the future might be more interested in a shared position rather than no opportunity to gain experience. Others may not want to share it because, again, it's who's responsible or accountable if something goes wrong and you're sharing those responsibilities. So it might vary from person to person, and others may not be interested in the position at all because they want to stay in the classroom versus take a one-year position rather than something that would be more long-term. So it's hard for me to gauge that, but if the right 2 people, for instance, delegated the responsibilities and duties and agreed to a job share and where those duties stop and start, it could be done. Again, most of the teachers that I'm thinking of are teaching 6 to 7 sometimes periods of the day, so even a half of a position or being available for because we know behavior instances don't only happen during 6th and 8th hour, right? It's going to be morning or afternoon is probably where the split is, and there'll have to be some type of backfilling. And it could be more challenging to find 2 part-time teachers in different content areas than to find 1 full-time in 1 content area. But it also depends on the content area. Some are harder to fill than others.
But with a behavioral issue, there will always be somebody of authority in the building, whether it is a superintendent, whether it's vacant.
Correct.
A named associate principal or 2 associate principals. That's just a matter of scheduling.
Right, and that gets back to Scott's point earlier, is that when, sometimes there'd be two meetings going on where Mitch and or I and possibly Vicki would be out of the building at the same time, we would reach down to one of those that have an administrative license to have them be on call or available as needed. So that has worked out in the past without issue.
Well, it seems like we can't make a significant decision, especially getting someone new involved. Yet if we're gonna do something other than have the superintendent do all the high school principal duties, if we're gonna do something other than that, we probably need to know what candidates are interested and available, right?
Right.
We should have that Wednesday night, then, if you could put multiple candidates.
Do you think we could poll internal candidates and be able to,
Yeah.
if there are,
There's now 8
people interested, we could make that decision Wednesday night?
We could contact the 8 to see who would be interested in pursuing it further, and then we know more about who we're talking about and how to best proceed.
I think that's the best option. Because that decision will need to be made also.
Any other comments?
Good discussion.
Okay, let's move on to middle school handbook.
This item was tabled from our last meeting, both the middle school and the high school student assignment books. As we are approaching the start of school, we would like to get a final approval on this. We can get it printed and be ready for students' returns. I'm not quite certain the direction to help the board with what language needs to be changed, updated. There was discussion about possibly a policy committee revisiting some aspects of board policy that might then in turn impact or influence high school or middle school handbooks. So I will open the discussion up so we can get more direction on what you're looking for.
Yeah, I have some comments on this thing. The door is open for the high school students at 7. Here it says daily class at 8. Are the doors open for the middle school kids at 7 with a warning bell also? They weren't uniform in the 2. That's one comment. The other thing is, I would change some of this language from parent to be parent and or guardian. For some kids, may have a guardian instead of a parent. That's not consistent. And then in the dates about decisions here, I was concerned about whether the 10 days meant calendar days, business days. It's not very well spelled out. So those are the 3 comments I have about this policy. Otherwise, I found it to be okay. It just conflicted with the opening, considering the high school and the middle school, and also in the documents about the high school one, it should be guardian and or parent.
Thank you.
And days aren't spelled out very clearly there, whether they're calendar or business days. It's, kind of ambiguous how you interpret that.
What area are you talking about, Dr.
It's specifically about the principal's decision, the complaints that appear, may appeal the decision within 10 days. So I don't know whether that means 10 calendar days, 10 business days. And it also has to do with discrimination complaints. Again, 10 days, it's not spelled out business or calendar.
Typically, that would be school days because of breaks that might come, a spring break or a...
This leaves it to interpretation.
It does, so to the point being, we should, I think, more clearly delineate school days.
Yeah.
And I will comment on this after Wednesday night's meeting.
Okay.
And the 210 plan is in place for all students. Everybody's seen that?
That's the high school handbook.
Yes.
Well, I'll move to approve the middle school handbook with Dr. Lindsay's suggested revisions.
And there will be further revisions after Wednesday night. Or proposed, there will be proposed revisions after Wednesday night's meeting.
Okay.
Second?
We're only talking middle school.
Middle school.
Okay, I'll second.
Any other discussion? Let's call the question.
Dunn,
Yes.
Dunlaw,
Yes.
Lindsay,
Yes.
Stefas,
Yes.
Bush,
Yes.
Chambers,
Yes.
Baston.
Yes. Okay. High school.
Personally, I still like to see that the 210 plan for seniors only in the high school. That's just my opinion.
Opposed. I think it ought to be for all students. And as I recall, the staff not agree with that.
And there are more staff here, yeah, but yes, the staff is in support of that.
Okay.
I think the main idea behind that is that we have an attendance problem.
We do have attendance problem on the fourth.
Our attendance drops off in the fourth quarter. And the only class that the attendance accrues in the fourth quarter is the senior class, because they're the only ones that had the 210 plan for the last several years.
Okay.
Every student takes a final exam in January. So there is the opportunity for those finals to happen. They have that opportunity to take finals. And as was shared at the last board meeting, if students wish to improve a grade, they can certainly take the finals. But the staff feels that with a kid in the seat, in the classroom, engaged in learning at the end of the year, they're getting what they need to get. There are opportunities to show mastery through retesting, retaking exams, reteach opportunities, relearning opportunities, and then retaking exams so students are showing mastery as they move forward. So it is, when it was put in, Andy?
Almost 30 years ago.
Scott, was it here when you were in?
Almost 30 years.
Okay, it was put in because it was a attendance thing. And
I was on the board.
parents certainly appreciate the added help to say, hey, if you want to be off the 210 plan, take finals, go ahead, you can stay home, I'm tired of listening to whine, and then the kids get up and go to school because they don't want to have to take finals.
I actually have had at least a dozen parents call me or stop me and tell me that it's like, please put that back. When the 4th 9 weeks come, my kids get out of bed, I don't even have to get them up. And I'm like, really? I'm like, okay. It's like the other 3 quarters.
In order for me to feel good about this, I just want to feel like we know the kids learned what they were taught second semester. And I just need to be convinced that they've learned it without taking a final that covers that exact content. You know,
Can I help you there? We're
Yeah,
assessing
please.
the entire time.
Yeah,
I have a test on I teach seniors and I teach juniors. I have a test on the very last day regardless of if there's a final, because I want them accountable for the last week. I'm assessing them the entire time.
yeah.
So having that summative final isn't, to me, as important as the carrot that we're giving them to show up, and then you don't have to take, we're testing them anyway.
I think that's a great point. So that's the kind of thing I need to hear. You know, I mean, if you don't have to have a final to prove kids' achievement.
Correct.
You know what I mean? So I just didn't know that we had alternate plans. Like I'm just thinking, you know, if I show up to work every day, but I just don't do my work and just sit there, then did I do my job? Well,
Right.
no. You know, am I a productive employee? No, but I showed up.
Right.
So do I get a paycheck? You know, so, you know, I want to make sure it's more than just putting a butt in a seat, right? It's continuing to challenge the kids through the end of the fourth quarter and not have it be, you know, 2 weeks of movie day, you know? So
I can guarantee it won't be 2 weeks.
yeah, I'm just throwing that out there, you know?
Right.
I'm not using any concrete example, but to your point, you know, if the teachers, and the teachers gave that feedback last time too, so I just want to make sure that they feel confident that they're able to assess these kids, they're able to make sure they learn the material without having a summative final at the end.
And I think, to Terry's point and to your question, they're here. So it isn't now, I gave an assessment and now you were gone because your cousin was moving home from lacrosse and it was 85 out today, and 2 hours later you're on the golf course or fishing or whatever. You're here, so I know, and the staff know, those students are here and have that opportunity for that assessment to take place in the classroom and not have to play catch up when they come back.
And then for all students then, with that, and I do teach the seniors, so it's been that way. I've been here for 20 years. And I tell them, at the beginning of the second semester, there is a test on the last day.
And we talk about it at the beginning of the fourth quarter too. There's a test on the last day. And what it does is since they're all there, everybody grows more. Because they're all there, they're engaged, and the content is being presented up to the last minute. And then there's a test at the very end. Now, it's not the same sort of time frame, and it's not necessarily a summative final of everything of that semester. But I am assessing them all throughout the semester, all through the fourth quarter. So it has a lot of value just in keeping kids there and they show up, they learn. They do.
Would you say that your approach is fairly common amongst
Yes.
most of the staff?
There's others here, yes.
Yeah, okay. And then,
And it's not just, and like you said, a butt in a seat. Up until that last minute, if they're I'm telling that, but he had someone take their final at the last second of the last day because they were disrespectful. So we hold them accountable for more than just showing up. So, and it does impact their grade. If they're doing poorly. The opportunity's there for retakes. If they need to take a final exam, if they're between grades or something, that opportunity is still there. Terry, do you think
that kids study for a final compared to, it's sort of an art, to make them college ready, more college ready?
I will say this, college is going away from the same sort of finals that they've given in the past. There's a lot of colleges that are now going to project-based stuff that would more suit having something due on the last day, as opposed to the final exam time. And the prep that they get for studying for the final exams, they get tested plenty, whether that be for our regular periodic exams, the full-length final exams we give in the winter that they take year after year, all years that they're here. Is it Darlington that does the 210 both semesters?
I think for the whole semester, second semester.
Whole second semester. So the other schools have seen value in that as well. In the 210 plan, that idea of rewarding the students with not having to take a summative test. It's actually just training them.
Our kids are prepared for college, that's all.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I have not had anybody come back and say, I wasn't ready for my final exams when I got to college. If anything, our kids are more prepared than others.
just a clarification question. Let's say you're a teacher, you don't have a summative final anyway, and instead you have a project that's due, or like an English teacher, like a senior essay that's due on the last day. Is if there's no final, or would they be excused from that instead? Would that, in your opinion, if they said,
If it's a project type of thing, and it would give us greater latitude than everybody was on 210 plan, it would give us greater latitude to do that sort of thing, as far as having more project-based assignments as the summative. But no, that wouldn't be, you wouldn't say, if you had value in that type of a project, you wouldn't disregard that, just because it wasn't the final exam piece.
yeah,
In fact, you'd be more likely to do that if there was
it's
this
kind of cumulative work
Correct.
building up, yeah. Okay.
I have a quick question separate from this. What is access time? I couldn't quite follow what that was in this.
Yeah, that is the intervention time that's built in at the end of the school day where kids can get remediation or additional enrichment opportunities. It's a small mini period that's built in.
So, somebody care to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to include the high school, what do we call it, student conduct or?
Handbook.
Handbook.
I will make comments on that after I finish reading too.
Are you gonna second? Thank you. Do a roll call.
Just one more comment. I'm going to support this tonight. I would like to see us potentially, through Mitch and the students and the staff, look at a semester plan. If the benefits of this plan are what the staff is telling us, why not do it both quarters? Why not get everybody there the whole second half, for the whole second semester? Whatever the numbers are, would you double them? I think the zero disciplinary probably needs to remain the same, but I think, yeah, the benefits are there, why wouldn't we extend them further?
But during that time of the year, Andy, there's the cold and flu season, you're just going to encourage kids to come to school, so.
Any other discussion? Let's call a question, please.
Lindsay,
Yes.
Stefas,
No.
Bush,
Yes.
Chambers,
Yes.
Dunn,
Yes.
Gunlaw,
Yes.
Basting.
Yes.
Wasnby honor roll is next.
Actually, Glenn, do you wanna speak now, because it's been almost half an hour?
Yeah, that's fine, I don't have all that much to say. I had an emergency, so I didn't have much preparation. You've been hearing about this 1.2 million, or $12 million roughly for the elementary school. And what your interest rate's gonna be, but on the way in, I calculated that at 4%, you're gonna end up with $840,000 a year payment over 20 years. And if you add that $350,000 you're gonna want for the perpetuity for cover your expenses, you're talking about $1.2 million a year. Now, if you didn't have this money, why did you grant a 5% increase in wages? And some of the things that, we tore the roof off the elementary school. Many people came through here while I was on the board, stated it was in fine shape. What I heard was that we replaced it now because inflation would cost more later. Now, we threw away the years that you would have gotten free. Now, you're talking about the inflation of the cost of the roof. You have inflation general throughout the economy. So you would be paying for that increase with cheaper money because the people would get wages increases during that time. And I think that sometimes you're not thinking this through, and I think that you ought to be made aware of, probably not too many people here realize it, there are people in this community that have less than a $300 a year or dollar a month Social Security payment. Not everybody is as affluent as the people in this room. And we also, I saw in a White and Blue Review like 2 years ago, we were $2,000 higher per student cost than Darlington. Now that's $1.4 million. That and the 1.2 is $2.6 million. That's $2.5 million a year. And we're not getting any more education. You talked about the school report card. I looked into the other ways that the school is graded, and I see neighboring schools that are higher than ours. And there isn't a correlation between how much money you spend and the achievement of the children. That's been proven a long time ago, and if you don't believe it, get out and do a little research and find it out. And I guess that's about all I have to say. Think about this a little bit. You can fix it for $1 million, fine. Why do we need $12 million? With declining enrollment, how do we know 20 years from now half these schools aren't closed? They're all running at half capacity. This high school was built for about 150 students, I believe. You got 199. You're like a farmer milking 50 cows. So just something for you to think about.
Thanks, Glenn.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move on to the business honor roll.
Me, I think I emailed you guys as a reminder that the deadline is approaching if you want to nominate anybody for the State Association of School Boards Business Honor Roll, and you have the previous nominees. If you would like to, you could nominate up to 5. You don't have to nominate any, you can nominate 1, so on and so forth, whatever you would like, but I would be looking for a motion from the board as to which businesses they would like, because these are due in a week or so, and I need to fill that out.
just say, I'm not a new board member. You know, a lot of the previous nominees, I would have thought of, you know, as they're ones that I've already thought of, ones that I've seen publicly help the school. I would, if I had an idea, I would have made a nomination, but I'd have to defer to the older board members that maybe saw a little more involvement with businesses over the past school year to make a nomination.
Kristen helped, didn't she? Kristen Mitchell?
Do you have any nominations, Joelle, that you recommend?
Again, I don't feel I'm in the place to do so. This is the board's desire.
That would be a good one.
That'd be Kristen Mitchell.
She was on there in 2016.
Be very good.
Yeah.
That's good.
She was on there in 2016?
Yep.
Just about everybody.
Is there any kind of rule about repeat
Yeah,
members, or is
no,
it-
they just get a certificate. I shouldn't say just, it's a nice thing to do. It's a very nice thing to do.
Sure.
But there's,
She upped her game this year. She did.
yeah, so I'd have to look into that, but I've never seen anyone renominate somebody, so.
Is Badger Welding on that list?
Badger Welding is not.
I know that they have supported the ag program, the plasma cutter out there, and getting that program up, and a lot of support in recent
Yeah,
history.
you're rolling, it is.
That's a great recommendation. Mineral Point Opera House, they allow
We did that one last year.
our kids to come down and use that facility
That one's
a few
done.
times throughout the year. Anything else, Mitch?
I'd like to consider, and obviously I'm the football coach throwing this out there, the 2 corporate sponsors that are out on that, or 3 if we want to do Pepsi. I think theirs was in correlation with the contract, but we got $25,000 donations from Team and Southwest Health, is that correct?
Correct. You have Dean, Southwest Health, Pepsi, and Halal.
Not a lot of.
And
Yes.
the stadium. Come on now.
No, I'm saying they weren't the 4th one, I'm not saying.
Just teasing.
It's a matter of correct information.
For anyone who may be waffling on bringing up the stadium, that was mentioned in previous years' nominations for donations, so it wouldn't be out of line.
So it's not Halana, was there were
They were
only
not
3?
the 4th one.
Can we stop competing?
Midwest.
That's really
Midwest.
okay.
Midwest.
Midwest.
Thank you.
Midwest.
And then left.
Midwest Concrete.
Midwest.
Roofing. Roofing. It could be
Yeah.
roofing. Just
So Midwest,
Roofing,
Badger Welding.
Badger Welding, Southwest Health. Pepsi, I don't think, feel bad for our kids. And you can delete that.
Dean is the 4th one.
Pardon?
Dean, I think, is the 4th one.
Yeah, I think SSM Health is the new name, which is, I think, part of motivation. They're having a logo changeover, so I think they want to get the logo out there. In addition to supporting the school.
So we have 4.
Could you repeat those for me?
Yeah, Jude Roby.
Yes,
Right.
the Orthopedic Institute.
Right, which would be the proper way to say it, not
Southwest
Southwest.
Health.
Okay.
And yeah, I think SSM Health is the appropriate way to name that.
I agree.
Jeff, what's your list? Could you read it for me, please? Make sure I got it
Orthopedic Clinic,
right. Okay.
SSM Health, Midwest Roofing, and Badger Welding. Anybody else?
AB Electric donated amongst them,
They were in 2016.
How about AB Electric?
They have not.
They donated much. Farmer Savings Bank, I see they were listed in 2016. I know they, if we're going to kind of gear toward the stadium, they were big contributors to the scoreboard.
Yeah, but that was
They
mentioned
were
in
there
there, right?
already.
I went back and read those.
Got it. So far, these have not.
Okay.
So those 4?
AB Electric.
Did he donate so much?
I have.
You don't know?
No idea.
We didn't check on that.
I don't know who did that hiring.
Wisconsin.
You don't have to do 5. If you're waffling on finding a 5th, I would say go with your 4 strong
For
ones.
next year.
Yeah.
4 strong ones.
So we have 4 strong ones. Does somebody want to make a motion to that effect, please?
A motion, we have the 4 strong ones.
Okay, all those in favor?
And who was the first?
Kelly.
I am Seclusion and Restraint Board. I'm really excited. I don't know if the board has had the opportunity yet to meet Angela Klein. She is our new Director of Pupil Services. You'll get a chance to meet her when we bring new staff on board. But I am really excited that she joined our team. She comes with a tremendous amount of experience, and she's well positioned to jump right in and take on the challenges at Mineral Point. So we welcome Angela. She's here with her annual report of Seclusion and Restraint. Full disclosure, she's owning the history of her predecessor, so she's just delivering the report. But it's a very, very good report. And so, Angela, do you want to speak to it, or do you want to just take?
I actually didn't even bring it with me, I just
Okay.
sent it on ahead, so
It
I
is-
know what's in it, but.
We can take it from here. It is in your board packet, and the total number of instances that we have to report annually by law, I can happily report that there was only one number of instances at the elementary school where we had to restrain a student. That incident involved a student that was not identified with a disability, and that is the only time throughout the 17-18 school year that we need to restrain or seclude, use seclusion on a student. So that is our annual report. If you have any questions, certainly let me know.
Need a motion that we accept it.
A motion to approve would be appropriate.
Motion. Second. Any more discussion?
Last discussion item is we strive for 0, so we're close, and we're going to try to make it next year.
Okay, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, motion carried. Elementary school building plan.
We have for the board in the packet final information with regards to the elementary school building and planning. The district is recommending to the board the approval of an $11.92 million bond for an elementary school remodeling and a $350,000 recurring referendum for operations. The average mill rate increase over a 20-year average is $2.09 to the current mill rate for the bond question, and an additional 86 cents for the recurring operations question. I put in your board packet the project breakdown so that if you wanted to do a subset of the 11.92, you would start basically at the top and work your way down because they are contingent upon each other. We want to have some good conversation about why we might parse out a project rather than do the full project, because there are some challenges if we were to start to roll back. We've talked about some of those challenges in the past. I do have a mill rate analysis for you of what the net mill rate would be over the next 3 to 5 years based on our current mill rate right now. So because we have some mill rate reduction going into next year, that absorbs some of that $2.09 and some of that 86 cents. So we're not feeling the full impact of that mill rate addition. You also have both questions that would be worded exactly as you would see it on a ballot in November. And I would, at this time, just take a moment to publicly read those so that we have it on the record. Question number 1 is, be it resolved by the school board of the Unified School District of Mineral Point, Iowa and Lafayette Counties, Wisconsin, that there shall be issued pursuant to Chapter 67 of Wisconsin State Statutes general obligation bonds in the amount not to exceed $11,920,000 for the public purpose of paying the cost of a school building and improvement program consisting of code, maintenance, and ADA items, renovate and update the existing elementary, parking, bus lane, and stormwater improvements, secure lobby, office, and classroom addition, gym, and physical education addition. The second question, be it resolved in the same location that we be authorized as a district to exceed the revenue limit specified in section 121.91 of the Wisconsin State Statutes by $350,000 for the 19-20 school year and thereafter for recurring purposes consisting of ongoing operational expenses. Those are the questions before the board. Taking action on this matter tonight would put in motion a report to the Department of Public Instruction that would notify them of our intent to go to referendum and start an election process. If you do not approve this tonight, there is a chance to revisit this, but we would be beyond the deadline to have a November referendum, and it would have to be probably an April opportunity at the earliest, or delayed until such time that the board wished to revisit the question or at another time. The questions that are before the board can be modified tonight, but this is a final reading, and the action tonight would be binding moving forward. So I will open it up for discussion by the board and final action.
Why is our mill rate dropping from 18 to 19?
We are receiving more state aid this year, so that's causing us to have to levy less.
And you carry that forward
Correct.
through 2023?
Yes.
And we want to have both questions together or separate?
I would vote on those separately, and I believe that it needs to be a separate vote for each.
How long would it take you just to bring up our area schools, mill rates? I just noticed.
Minutes, not hours.
We will fill in the time of discussion.
So are you gonna start discussing?
Yeah, I got a question for Kevin. Where do we stand on the baseball field, Kevin, with the new road coming down on the west side of it? Do you need that designed in there, or would you keep that baseball field?
Yeah. I think the existing baseball field could remain with the way the road was shown. The bus lane.
Simple one way to, I've looked at it, and I can't see where.
One way.
Could be a one way.
It would have to be a one way, but it could be traversed by buses, school buses.
Okay. I mean, you're adding in drainage on both sides and right away from property lines.
Yeah. We had Wiser Engineering take a closer look at it as well, a civil engineering firm that participated in the design workshop. So I feel it's appropriate as well. We want to get a second opinion.
That's not a standard 66.
No,
What's the width of it?
the width of the lane, you mean
The bus
paved lane?
Yes.
A normal street, a normal two-way street would be 24 feet, for example. A straight shot lane would be 12. So as they looked at it, they said we could design an 18-foot wide lane and perhaps widen it at the turns. And so it won't be a full 24-foot two-way paved street. That'd be kind of a standard width of the street.
To bring the board up to date on the pre-K being upstairs, we got new information that it's not a fire code, am I correct in saying that?
There was a further refinement of, currently we would be in violation of building code as stated by the state fire inspector. But if we were to, there are some exceptions to that, and so if you were to egress all other students that currently follow the pre-K down the stairs out another door, it would be permissible as one of the exceptions to continue to maintain pre-K on the second floor.
Okay.
It's still not recommended though. The fire marshal is very clear in the NFPA that even if you do those exceptions, they really don't like it. They don't recommend it. If you fire sprinkler the entire building, that's another opportunity.
Is there insurance impacted at all?
Impacted,
Well, like, are we covered, are we not covered? Because there was some question about that also.
yeah, as it stands right now with no change in procedure, The district's insurance company said that the liability, should a claim be made, could be jeopardized. I have not huddled back up with the insurance company following the refinement of the exclusions or exceptions to see if that would be acceptable for the insurance company. So that hasn't been determined, if they would find that ruling or interpretation to be then a matter where they would accept the liability.
So what you're saying is that with the new information that we have about students going in different directions, you have a...
There's not been a redetermination made.
Redetermination. Can we have that done?
Yes, we sure can.
Okay, thank you.
Through the planning process of this proposal, was there much discussion on our declining enrollment and future projections with that?
Yes, we did secure UW-Madison and the Applied Population Lab to do a study and look at, nothing came out, thanks, I'll try to reprint. Nothing came out of that discussion from our committee's work, and for a couple reasons. It's not very accurate to project long-term. The enrollment rates, they're only good for the first 5 years, is really what the summary found. And they would say that they would suggest it's flat or slightly declining. Again, slightly declining being 10 less students across the district level would be potentially 1 kid per grade. So overall, it stays relatively flat to where it is right now in the near future, and it's hard to project in the foreseeable future, but that slight decline is I think, the most accurate reflection of that report.
In that report, didn't they separate buildings?
They did. They separated out the elementary,
Stated
middle, and high
elementary,
school. This building will
estimated
continue.
flat or
Correct.
potentially slightly increasing?
Yes.
And the decrease was at the upper levels?
I think the bubbles that are coming through now will actually see the high school population start to increase. But if we look at just our pre-K population over the last year, and it's hard to project, but they did look at birth rates and so forth, that's where the numbers coming in behind are slightly behind the grades that are coming up through the elementary into the middle high school. If you recall, we've got that large bubble of class that's coming through, and there's some others like that that are similar. The question really for the district is what's happening in that pre-K and before grade levels that are going to be coming up over the next few years. And anecdotally, there was discussion about, in a community meeting, about a lot of families moving here and starting families. And they were anecdotally sharing people that they knew were having babies, families with members coming back to the community to reside here. So how you capture that is hard, but I would suggest to just look at the trend line again, which is flat to slightly declining over a period of time.
So Kevin, in the $12 million proposal, it includes a gym, administrative offices. How much additional classroom space does that proposal give the elementary school?
The biggest expansion of classroom is really to change the size of some of the rooms, to get them closer to the standard. So some of the new classrooms in that plan make up for the ones that are lost. So for me to say there's 6 new classrooms kind of hides the fact that I think 3 of those are replacement classrooms.
So
Explain
So-
replacement classrooms.
You've got classrooms that are about 700 square feet, for example,
Okay.
in one part of the building. You're in for 2nd grade, 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade, they should be 900 square feet. And you have the number of students in them that is standard. So the concept there was to take, what was it, 4 of those 700 square foot classrooms and turn them into 3 classrooms. So some of the new classrooms were built to accommodate that.
So per square foot, can we say secure lobby, office, gym, and PE addition is so many square feet, and then classroom addition is so many square feet?
Yes.
Can we separate that out?
Between the classroom and the lab.
Well, we need secure lobby, office, gym and PE addition, square footage, and then what is the square footage that we're changing in the actual classroom?
The gym and the PE addition was.
We got 90, okay, so let's just do secure lobby and office and separate that. How much of that are we doing per square foot or total square foot? And then the classroom addition, what's the total of that square foot?
It's gonna take me a little bit to find that. The major renovation on the second floor was 9,600 square feet. I was looking at the cost estimate. I'm gonna have to look at the program document.
Yeah, I'm just printing it out because it's so small print, so it should be coming shortly.
Now I have this program document that we used as a comparison for kind of the standards of what you have, what the national standards are, what was being proposed for the office, staff restrooms, staff workroom, mailboxes, staff lounge, conference room, counselor, workroom, nurse, all those things combined, you're about 2,100 square feet. And the standard is about 4,100 square feet, and we were proposing just under 4,000 square feet for that. That's net.
2,100 square feet is for the classroom? Is that what you just said? I'm sorry.
No, the main administration
Okay,
is
good.
right at 4,000 square feet. Okay.
Administration was 2,100?
No, the administration is 4,000.
Okay,
It's 3,972.
okay. Sorry, I'm doing two things at once here.
Sure.
And then what was the classroom?
Classroom addition. Four full-size classrooms at 3,600 square feet. That's basically 4 900 square foot classrooms at 3,600 square feet.
It's about half and half.
That's what I have in my budget analysis.
I thought you were talking about
Actually,
1,000 square foot classrooms.
I think those were the 1,200 square foot kindergarten and preschool spaces. Because we wanted to get them to the grade level for exiting. So the standard for pre-K and kindergarten is 1,200 square feet, 1,200. The standard for first grade is 1,000 square feet. So I think what we were showing in the design is preschool and kindergarten. So that's 3 of those classes.
Thanks for being here. Looking down the list there quickly, if we raise our mill rate, if we were to approve both these questions, we would have a mill rate of 14.25. 24. If we do that, for some reason. You know the reason for that, Liv?
No, I don't know Cassville's story.
Other than that, we wouldn't be the highest taxed community.
Did Cassville lose some major industry down there? Huh?
Did the power plant
The
shut
power
down?
plant.
Yeah, some major industry, that's, yeah.
And I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but you just got to be able to answer them questions when they arrive.
So what number did you come up with?
I just looked at 1338, added 86 cents,
Okay.
It's 14.24.
14.4. And the 350,000 operating referendum certainly is going to slow down the deficit, but I think we all agree that's only a short-term fix.
And that's not reoccurring, that's a one-time?
And that
Is
is
that?
Yes.
Okay, got it.
reoccurring.
Say it?
So we're
And we
Yes,
are,
it says recurring.
and we're operating under a 1.1 for
Recurring.
Yeah,
Got it.
recurring.
Okay.
I have no objections to keeping up with an average mill rate, but to be the almost leader in mill rates, I think that's dangerous territory for myself. And I know there's been a lot of hours put into the surveys, and it has cost the district some dollars. I still feel with the change in leadership, it would be wise of the district to just take a breather on this, whether it's 6 months, a year. It's not like we don't spend any money on our building. I can think of $1.5 million we spent in the last 4 or 5 years, right off the top of my head, for these renovations, fixes. That's right.
You feel like we're gonna hold on both resolutions?
I do, with the budget not balanced this year, and I feel with, at any given time, we can go to the public with the operating referendum. By any budget with the state, we haven't, in the last couple of years, we have not dipped into our fund balance.
That's correct.
So we have evidence there. And we have a fund balance. In 2 years, we have our Fund 46 dollars available, which should be approximately $400,000 for capital. So that will lessen the burden. The survey, the research, what Kevin has done has not been wasted. I think it would still be the same information if we did it 6 months from now or a year from now.
It sounds like you're afraid it's gonna pass.
If it passes and it's not a well put together referendum, is that good for our community?
Okay. So you're concerned that we're gonna put together a resolution that's not the best thing for the community, and that the community may vote for it anyway?
Based on the mill rate, certainly a detriment to the community. The operating referendum, I think we're premature on that. I don't think we need to go to referendum for operating dollars. If we have them, we'll spend them.
I totally hear you, and I don't entirely disagree with your suggestion. I guess I'm just trying to play devil's advocate here, you know, I mean, what if the community does agree with you? And they say, it's too soon, bill rate's too high. We reject these resolutions. Then
what
we're-
you're doing is you're going back, if you took a 1229, you're going back to the community and saying, well, now that didn't pass, so we're gonna go to a $6 million referendum where if we really needed a $12 million referendum and we don't get it, that's harmful to our school. I think the chances of the referendum passing, it's anybody's guess. But and I'm not comfortable with it, and I'm not going to support it tonight. And if the board's not comfortable with it, I urge the board not to go ahead with it at this time. I sense some confusion on the board and with this whole project. Zero votes. Skepticism, I should say.
We'll see.
Jeff, there's
Larry?
I'd like to ask Luke, I think, you're mostly judging on a very poor report back. What do we get, 10% back over the schedule sent out? Now, that isn't a very good report to base this kind of money on. I think Luke will say that's about what we got back.
Yeah, we get just under 400 surveys back, which was by far the best response rate we've ever had.
That was good, but that wasn't very good, was it?
It's the best we've ever had.
I would,
It's
as
the
Kevin
best you've
will
had,
tell you,
what
it's the best
percentage
a
of-
lot of schools have had.
Pardon?
That's what I would, as Kevin will tell you, it's the best a lot of schools have had.
Yeah,
I
so
don't care what they say, what percentage was it?
For those that didn't have kids in the district, 88% of those respondents were in favor of at least dressing, code maintenance, and ADA. That's a pretty high percentage of people without kids in the district. The lowest was 61% on the gym and PE edition.
But you gotta
You're asking
remember,
survey
that's your
response
base
percentage, right?
percent
How many surveys
was
was sent
sent
out?
back.
Right.
365 surveys were
What
sent
he's
back.
saying is that was a very small percentage that
How many sent
still
out?
came back.
And did you know that a lot of people didn't get them until 3 days ahead of being back? They got tied up in Milwaukee for about 20 days. Mine came and had to be back, I think, on Friday, and had to be back Monday. No way. There was a lot of them like that.
Terrible time with mail.
There was a lot of them sitting in Milwaukee on walk mail.
what we typically look at is how many folks voted in the last election, last school election. And if we get between 7 and 10%, we're usually pretty pleased with that. If you look at other polls in elections, people are pretty excited if they get a 5% sample. And we felt that 365 was a pretty darn good number. It would have been great if it was 500. And we did continue to get more surveys in, and it didn't change the percentages at all. In fact, we integrated in a few right at the end, and it was the same result.
Go ahead, Rachel.
Okay, Larry's asked, and a couple other people have asked, how many surveys were sent out? You keep telling us 365 came back. How many were sent out? Somebody up there must know how many surveys were sent. How many were?
That's not something that is sent out from our office, so I can't give you the specific number. It's because it's used through a mail house survey, so anyone with a zip code in the school district received the survey. How many households those are is not something, because we paid for that service, for somebody to send that out of their location to each household with the zip code. So I do not know, I can find out, but I do not personally know the number that was sent out.
When we were going through the numbers before the survey, we was about 2,400. Anybody else on the board remember that?
2,200, I think.
2,200?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's the best we can do, I guess, Mary Jean's and that,
Okay.
2,200.
Jen, do you remember?
It was around there.
direct door mailer So.
That's about how many white and blues we sent out, isn't it? About
It's in the
2,200?
whole- it's in the
And that's what we go by as the
Same
zip code, so it's.
Okay, okay.
Does anybody know how many were direct mailed? Bulk mail other?
Everybody, that would be the number.
Yeah, that is the number,
What is?
the 2,200,
No,
2,230.
that's right, but how many, you stayed in Milwaukee till it was too late?
We continue to accept them even if they were late.
They what?
We continue to accept them even if they came in after the deadline.
So, look, what you're saying is that they were tallied after the deadline?
Correct.
Okay.
But some people didn't send them in anymore because the deadline was set. So they said, well, I guess there's no reason to send it in because the time's passed.
Certainly.
It said they had to be on by this date.
Right.
Account.
365 into 2,200 is 16.5%.
16%. 365 divided by 260.
Technology. Did you hear that, Larry? 16.5% based on the numbers that are tossing around right now.
Maybe to you people, but not to me to spend $12 million.
Yeah.
It's not a very good community feeling, I don't think.
Well, again, I mean,
Well, you made a decision. I got one clip on it.
if we're not happy
You get to vote.
with the
Everybody
survey,
gets to vote.
Everybody gets
That
to
would be the
vote.
decision.
Everybody gets to vote.
Somebody want to make a motion? Any kind of motion.
I'll just say that I have gotten 0 comments to me, to my school district email against this resolution. 0 in 3 months. No one's come up to me personally and said, this is a horrible idea. So, that's where I'm coming from. If there's I know that this is not a unanimous decision from the community, and I know that there's some tax burden here, and I know that, believe me, I see a lot of people every day that have trouble making their bills. So I'm very sensitive to that. But I've gotten a lot of feedback about a lot of other issues leading to this board meeting, and these resolutions were not one of them. And so if someone missed the deadline for the survey, you know, they could have talked to me personally or sent a letter to the board just like their appointed staff did, or, you know, come to this board meeting, which is helpful feedback, you know.
Yeah, I got negative feedback on that when I proposed that I was for the $18 million renovation. rather good. It made me rethink, and then I changed my mind to support this. And then actually I got people that had no children said that they would support this. The ones that were upset with my idea of a brand new school next to this school. So I would say that I've had positive feedback for this from people that don't have children in the district yet going to school. But I certainly got comments about my support for the 18 million. I think this is up to the electorate. I understand the hesitation to float a balloon out there that might get shot, but I think it's a good plan. I know that 16% isn't 100% representation, but the call to vote, I think, should be done for this. I'd also point out that when I looked at the budget for this following year, we're 10,000 in the hole, according to Marcia's figures. And I looked at that closely because we thought we balanced it, but it's not. So that referendum for more money, we're going to need some money. Maybe we don't need 350. Maybe that could be reduced. I wondered if it couldn't be reduced. Why ask for 350? What made us come up with that number? But in regards to the school renovation, I would support us going ahead and letting the public decide. I think it's a good plan.
Are we ready for a vote?
We need a motion. Can I make that motion, Doc?
I'll make that motion that we approve a referendum for the school.
Question one.
Yeah, question one. I still have a question about why the 350 on the second. I just don't follow that one
I
myself.
think originally we were 350,000 roughly short.
Yeah, I don't think we need that
Got
much.
everything.
We were gonna vote separately on each question though, so this is
Right.
just for question one.
But I make a
Question
motion
one,
for
we
it.
have a motion. Does somebody want to second it? You're done. Any further discussion?
Does anybody want to sway me either way? Because I'm still torn. I see Glenn Kinch's point. Fixed income people can't make it, you know. That's where the question's kind of, I mean, I know that they'll be campaigning for both sides if we do this. So I'm just so torn because I think of myself, yeah, I can make the payments, I can make it up. My grandma can't, you know, kind of like Glenn said, fixed income, fixed, you know, everything like that. So but Mineral Point is, again, I think Mineral Point will grow eventually. People move to Mineral Point, people come back to Mineral Point, people have families in Mineral Point's so it's not keeping up with everybody else, it's just kind of keeping that bar high because we are a pretty significant place, so I don't know.
Well, I think traditionally Mineral Point has supported the schools at all income levels. I know it's hard for a lot of people, but I would say that their heart would be in the right place in the sense that they would like to see us keep good facilities and keep good teachers. I don't know how you resolve the question of the increasing tax burden. If you use that as your sole criteria, how do you go forward with anything? Then you see, I can understand the conflict.
Well, my biggest issue is the fact that we keep saying that it's 80, Kevin and Luke keep saying 80% approval and so forth. It's 80% of 16.
16%, yeah.
So you're that, when public that have called me is like, how do you guys come up with 80+%? Everybody I talk to is opposed. And I'm like, so that's very misleading. Telling people that it's 80-some% approval, because it isn't. It's 80% of 16, which is much less. And I still have an issue with that, but.
I think there'll be a good turnout this fall election. I mean, based on the current political climate and this issue, I think the public will really make their wishes known. But I share Larry's concern that if we float the balloon and it's shot down, it's like, well, at least we'll know that we're gonna have to come back with a different and less expensive proposal.
12.8, 80% of 16 is 12.8.
Say it again.
12.8 is 80% of 16.
You know, what I'm hearing is the school's not up to code. The foundation's crumbling beneath it. The walls are falling apart. Kids don't have enough space. Our gym's not big enough. Parking's not good.
You forgot the boiler.
You know, we forgot the boiler, our entrance isn't secure enough, and we need to do something. Okay, so we got a committee together, community members, we got a design consultant to figure out the best way to do this. We put out a survey. I don't know what else we could have done to get a sense of what we need to do for what price and with what community support. And I'm left with a survey that has at least a majority support. I'm left with a suggestion that I can't whittle down to anything smaller without the dominoes kind of falling for this project. I'm not convinced that this is something we need to kick down the road. So it's a bitter pill to swallow. And again, if the sense is that there's opposition to this in a huge way that was not voiced previously, then the only way we can know is to put it to a vote, because we've had a forum, we've had surveys, we've had school board meetings, and, you know, our emails have been available, you know, and I don't know what else can be done to get a decent sense of what the community wants us to do. So I'm left with just saying, we did our best to try to put the best resolution forward. You know, we talked about cheaper options here. I suppose we could just do a, you know, $2 million code upgrade and leave the crumbling foundation the way it is with water draining underneath it, and cross our fingers. But I feel like this is what we got. And it's, you know, if it gets voted down, you know, I'm with Larry. Let's just regroup and reassess and do another, you know, get more input on why it went down. Was it too expensive? Was it a wrong remodel? You know, figure out what went wrong, and then let's
hope Kevin comes under budget.
figure out some, yeah, hope the project comes under budget, but, you know, come up with something that community supports next time around, and do it a year from now, or whenever we feel like the timing's right. So here's my more than 2 cents.
Anybody else?
Well, it's important to,
I propose before that we just do the we go give them 7 million and come back with a plan. Because I feel that we should be able to pay something in 10 years without breaking everybody's bank. Because I think in 10 years, changes are gonna be made in how we house our school, our children, and where we house them. And that doesn't seem to register with anyone. So but that's what I see.
and just to clarify, the elementary school is deemed safe. I mean, you make it sound like it's smaller.
Well, it may be safe today, but I don't feel good about it. I mean, that is a weight-bearing wall that's coming away from those classroom walls in that hallway. You know, it makes me more nervous than a fire code. But
And
again,
certainly,
that's
certainly that can be fixed. I don't spend $1 million to fix the wall that's got a crack in it.
Well, it's got a crack in it because the whole foundation is settling, because there's storm water draining underneath, so we need to redo the foundation. And
you go around to a homeowner and you ask them to look at the basement wall and they're all going to have cracks.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Angie, call the question, please.
Lindsay,
Yes.
Stefas,
Quote unquote.
on
One.
question 1,
To approve, right?
correct.
No.
Bush,
Yes.
Chambers,
Yes.
Dunn,
yes.
Gunlaw,
No.
Basting.
No. Motion carried. Okay, somebody want to make a motion for the question number 2?
I think we ought to discuss it. First, I don't, 350,000, I really need that much. I don't know how we got that number, that's what I'm getting at. It's like,
Yeah, that was, the board had actually not asked for that number, they had asked for 500,000 and $1 million were the two numbers that were asked to be put forward. I put 350 back into the mix because that was what we started our school year with a budget deficit. So when the board originally said to the preliminary budget balance it, it was 350,000 at that time. As we've gone through some iterations and the budget continues to move, you've got before you later on in the agenda to add some of that reduction back into the budget. We can talk about that later, but there's a a need for more, I guess that would be an opinion, right? But you'll hear from our administrative team that there are more needs than what this current budget can support. And they're asking for reconsideration. And so we're not delivering the services as we normally would this year. We're starting in that reduction mode. Could the number be reduced? You know, we've been directed by the board to balance the budget, but that will mean further reductions each year as our expenditures continue to climb. I can share that next year, I know our transportation costs will increase significantly because of the loss of the shared school district staffing and support from Pecatonica. So I'm sure that will raise our costs. We didn't really have a partnership nor an agreement, but they're leaving for another company is going to put us in a very costly position going forward. That will have to come straight from instructional materials and staffing, because that makes up 2/3 of our budget is staffing, and the other third is tied up in transportation, food service, maintenance, fixed costs, utilities. It leaves very few discretionary dollars to be forward-thinking and advancing our strategic plan. There's a lot of things that technology-wise we're taking out of the budget. We're no longer on the replacement cycle. We're starting to expand that out. And we have got a lot of safety security measures that have been recommended that we haven't implemented and can't afford to.
Well, to that point, Larry said if we get the money, we'll spend it, which I agree with his statement there. I mean, what if we find that we have a budget deficit the size of 10,000 list here of things that might only be 200,000? Wouldn't it be better just to ask for what we need?
Correct. So one point about a recurring referendum, and this is also inclusive of the 1.1 million that we went to referendum in 2012, is it authorizes the board to levy that. It does not necessarily mean it needs to be utilized. So every year when you certify the levy, you can certify less than the 1.1 million and not use the full 350. So a board exercise might be, if we were to use up to 350, what would be the projects? What are their anticipated costs, and only levy so much to that point in any given year. So you could authorize the 350 and go zero for the rest of time.
I see.
That's an annual board function that you must certify the levy. So you have to make that conscious choice to put that 350 in the warrant or any subset of that.
So just so I understand the budget timeline over this summer, we started with a deficit of about 350, right? And then we asked you to balance it, so we basically cut everything we could. That wasn't staff salaries, basically staff compensation, right? Or cutting staff, right? Then two things happened. One was we ran a surplus from this previous year, plus we got a $160,000
TIF,
one-time TIF award or give back reimbursement, thank you. And that allowed us to replenish all of those cuts that we made, because that basically totaled about 350.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. So we have a one-time windfall that is backfilling much of that, which would most likely go into maintenance and it refill the capital maintenance budget that was zeroed out. So if anything broke, we had no contingency plan for that. We usually would hold some other monies in contingency for things that are unforeseen, like the kitchen freezer that went down this year. We don't have a contingency for that without this one-time windfall. So you know, the question is what happens after that, and we don't have an answer for that right now. The other thing that when we balanced the budget was under the assumption that we weren't replacing some school FTE positions. The board reversed that decision, put those back in. So that again caused the expenditures to start to creep back upwards again. So that has been part of this evolving process. We still haven't looked at third Friday count in September, which is what our revenue is based off of. Open enrollment numbers, those kinds of things will continue to flex. Property values impact state aid. The more state aid, the less we levy. And vice versa, the less state aid, the more we levy. So we have a preliminary aid estimate right now, but that doesn't get finalized till October 1st. So there's a lot of moving parts to this budget. We could show a balanced budget pretty easily by just putting 2 more open enrollment kids in the revenue bucket. Now we're balanced again, but we don't know that until later. So it's kind of a moving target right now. We're trying to give you the best information as we have it today.
Just a sideline, with the busing, since Pecatonica left, couldn't we follow them and go wherever they went?
There's a possibility to visit that through a request for a proposal and get it forward.
Since they left, we have the same opportunity when we.
Could be potentially, yeah.
And are we just striking our contract?
We're in the last year of our contract this year, so we will be putting that out for bid regardless.
Okay. The last year is the.
I just have one question related to this. I know that the state makes reimbursements based on your budget, primary, secondary, tertiary tiers. Would this operating budget addition be a reimbursement on a primary tier?
I believe you're correct on that as well. It would be because
That's a pretty significant percentage
Yeah.
that the state's
I believe it was
reimbursing.
17% that were aided on those expenditures. So essentially, 17% of that is coming back in the form of state aid and not being levied.
That's based on, but we came up with 86 cents.
I
Correct.
think that's the net mill rate, yes, because that does take out the state aid impact, correct. But to that point, that schedule that the board has shows that,
Well, the state aid impact?
yeah, so we're essentially getting $63,000 coming from the state by levying the 350.
And you had estimated based on our current expenses plus anticipated increases in transportation and maybe health insurance premiums, that a $350,000 recurring referendum would maybe help us maintain a balanced budget for 3 to 5 years.
I would agree with that.
Is that a fair assessment of what you're, based on your recommendation?
Yes.
Okay.
To that point, I think that the 500 or 1 million that was originally asked to come back with some numbers, I don't think that's necessary at this time. I do think the 350 is the right amount of ask at this time to continue to keep our district as it is today, viable and thriving and moving forward in the strategic plan. It is not, in my estimate, used to put in new staffing or put on a big addition or something like that. Is simply to keep the operations going as the community expects we have in the past.
Okay, does anybody want to make a motion? That TIF money is included in this 10,000?
That is not at this time, no.
Okay,
That's still
so
a
that's-
fund balance that will be transferred over to maintenance.
Did we,
No, that's November, I believe. I think it kind of
they could
fall.
change their mind if they wanted to.
I don't believe so. I think that's it's pretty much done. I think it just matter
It
of,
is.
yeah.
It's just when they close the TIF out, they can't send a check until the actual.
But my question was, could the city reinvest that money into a new TIF district if they chose to?
No, they would have to start a new one. They have to pay that money out. Then they could choose to start a new one.
Somebody want to make a motion?
I'll move to approve question 2.
Need a motion, somebody like to second that?
I'll second it.
Any other discussion? Okay, Angie, let's call the question.
Dunn,
Yes.
Gunlaw,
Yes.
Lindsay,
Yes.
Stefas,
No.
Bush,
Yes.
Chambers,
Yes.
Basting.
Yes. Okay. We're revisiting the budget reduction in athletic sports.
When we did a budget reduction exercise of expenditures, this number has to be updated in general athletics. The $33,250 represents a reduction that was made across the object codes of wages, retirement, accounts, and apparel. But there are additional reductions that were made in the amount of $19,000 that Marcia made me aware of this morning that were in what we consider Vicki Dahl's athletic budget specifically. So that would be for contracted services, for instructional supplies and or equipment. So the total number that was reduced from athletics is the $33,250 plus another $19,000 or $52,250. That would be the full amount that was reduced to athletics. A board member requested that this was placed back on the agenda for reconsideration.
We have the number that was just in that workers.
I can tell you I'm already short work for
Have
alcohol.
the number that was just in that workers.
Yeah, I thought we did too, it was 22,000 super events,
Yeah, I thought that was the 19 or 20 that was.
somewhere in there.
I could look to see if I can find it, but that does seem right from memory.
So, just so I understand this, so there were over $50,000 of cuts to the athletic department budget during these budget cuts process, okay? And we're revisiting that to put that back in the budget? That's the request?
That was the request, yes.
Okay,
Specifically, yeah, it was my request, specifically the event workers,
yeah,
not the uniforms, pay increase, anything like that. It was, Vicky had strongly opposed the cut,
Right.
didn't think she would get volunteers. Sounds like she is short.
I don't have enough workers for
Already.
football season right now, so.
so it was. with
Based
the-
on where the budget's at and the surplus we have come in under the last X number of years, it seems feasible to me. So I
Right.
asked for that specifically, not the whole amount, just the event workers,
No,
whatever
it's
that
less than
number
that, it
is.
was much less.
I thought we discussed like
It was-
19.5 or 20
it was 22, but.
at the meeting.
Let's find out the number.
Do we need a specific amount?
Yeah.
I'm trying to dig exactly where, so there were multiple rounds of budget reductions, so I'm not sure if I can get into this more.
3 meetings ago.
You don't know? You want the
Per
money?
event.
I can make this.
I will take whatever you give me.
Okay.
That works. Let's do it, and make it not too.
So essentially, it's contracted services that you'd like to restore. The actual amount, we will need Marcia to verify that regardless, but I wouldn't feel comfortable.
It's just if it was 90, we can come up with the number. The board okay with it?
We could move on to, I might be able to find this information prior to the end of the meeting.
Can we just, I'm just reviewing the status of the budget right now, I'm sorry, I feel like I'm asking dumb questions, but, so.
You're a newbie, go ahead.
I'm a newbie. So, according to the report you got here in our agenda here, it's a $10,000 deficit currently going into this year?
Yeah.
That's without the $160,000 we're going to receive?
That is correct.
Okay, is it without either of these two hires? that are
Both
being
hires are in that side.
in the budget?
And it is with a full-time high school principal.
That is correct.
Include the full-time high school principal
Correct.
salary? Okay,
But not a rehire, not a new hire, if we hire from within.
that might be,
That
you're saying it
No,
might
I
be a little lower?
understand. It's place held with yours, I'm assuming.
Say again, it was
It's place, what is the superintendent place held with?
my current salary.
And then the principal's place held with
Mitch's
Mitch's.
current salary. No adjustments have been made to that yet.
Okay,
I see.
So none of the potential savings there are in this budget yet.
okay.
Gotcha.
What other cuts that we made this summer are not included in the current budget that's showing a $10,000 deficit?
Maybe it's that MacBook thing.
Yeah, reductions in technology, it was about 100,000 if I recall correctly. There were flat cuts
Teacher
to each
requests.
building level. Matt reduced the elementary budget, excessive, traveling for a professional conference, but if you recall, he had made the point that we were implementing about a stadium sound system yet. We had just reduced the elementary budget, so I'll have to go back to Marcia and see what those iterations were. But Mitch and Vicki both reduced their local building budgets significantly throughout. If I can find our old worksheets, I can bring all that back up again. But we moved down, once we made those cuts, we moved down to the preliminary budget. So I will do my best to get it.
Let's,
Roger's budget is backfilled with.
It has not yet been. Roger's budget is still cut at this point.
do we need action on that?
At some point,
move
probably
it
when you
from
finalize the
fund
budget,
balance.
that would be the time to move the fund balance into his maintenance accounts for capital equipment and for replacement.
I would be willing to host the finance committee meeting
Look at all of
to
that.
discuss what we want to do with the 180K one-time TIF. And if there's anything we want to propose back into the budget, because we will know potentially Wednesday what our savings is. Yeah, I don't know if that fixes the first few home games, but it,
So the 100,000 we were going to put back in Rogers' budget was going to come from that TIF one.
initially it was going to come from fund balance. We had a $260-some thousand surplus.
Sure.
We moved 160 to fund 46, and we were going to use 100K from
I think
fund
we're going to
balance.
retry again. Let's get, all these numbers before we start.
Before I make a motion for this, because I mean, it may be better used.
So have a separate budget.
Is that okay?
with-
Absolutely. I was gonna suggest that anyway for the TIF money, but
Is there no time to do it on Wednesday with that other?
that's what I wondered. Can we list it separate?
Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously, the public can be here, but it's more like a committee setting after the meeting.
Sure.
You're in the end down at the city hall, because there was, we were going around, they were going to reinvest that money.
I was told they had to pay it out,
We should find out that for sure.
Yeah.
and that's what I mean, we can verify that.
Sure.
Yeah, when they closed it out, I mean, they might be able to reinvest their portion into another TIF district.
I think it's fair to reevaluate what cuts are still left out of the budget, what cuts were made this summer that are still not back into the budget, how much is that, and then prioritize those to put back into the budget and make it balanced
Let's
for
put
the
a
start of the
finance
year.
committee meeting after,
Closed session.
after adjournment on Wednesday. I'll contact Mayor Basting and find out the specifics of the TIF. He's the one that contacted me regarding it.
Maybe, just as a, kind of a helpful piece, when we get the preliminary budget so early in the year, there's so many things like these things that materialize. It's a sound practice to try to balance the budget early in April and May and June. But, it's a work in progress, and that's why you don't get too concerned with a shortfall right away out of the gate. You try to make sure it's balanced by October when the dust is settled and the kids are in the seats and you know how many you have. So as you go forward in future planning exercises, just know it's okay. It's a practice by many districts to carry an initial shortfall preliminarily until they know more information. I think it's a good exercise. I'll work closely with the board to make sure that we can put those back in and know what our final shortfall or surplus is.
So is your plan for closed session on Wednesday at 6:30? And then finance committee after
After adjournment of
closed session?
the regular special meeting.
Yeah, because we'll come out after the closed session to a regular meeting.
Okay.
Thanks, Kevin. You probably gotta get on.
Just wonder if there were any questions in the office of the re-roof project. They're coming along very well.
I do have a question, Kevin. We went back to a ballasted roof on the roof.
Yes, because if we didn't, it was gonna require some structural modifications to the roof structure.
Right. I thought that was going to be addressed, we were aware of that, but I thought with some revamping of the trusses, we were going to not have to have a ballasted roof.
It was decided it was a lot more expensive to revamp the trusses. Once we got the prices back, than to put ballast on.
All right. Is that diminish our warranty on that roof there?
No, no, not at all. Actually helps with UV protection of the membrane.
We're using different rock.
Yeah,
Will it be done by the start of school?
I'm told yes it will.
Okay. The office, will it be done, or will we stand on that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just here Friday yeah, Friday afternoon and kind of did a walkthrough and talk to some of the actual people doing the work. You know, when you talk to the office, you might get one story.
Sure.
Talk to the folks on site and they said, we're gonna get it done.
All right. How often do you inspect their work? Just curious.
Sometimes twice a week, sometimes once a week. Just depends on my schedule.
Are you happy with the contractors?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, very happy with it. They did a great job on the desk, and putting that back together.
The roofing contractor?
Yeah, they're very thorough.
Thank you.
You bet. Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Okay, let's move on to employee services.
We have before the board two amazing candidates in Heather Pitchlow and Nikki Kavanaugh. These fill our final certified staff positions for the elementary building in 5th grade and the library. Both come very, very highly regarded, and the resume is there before you. They are amazing candidates that you'll be very excited to have your children and grandchildren interact with. We have brought in some strong people to continue to build on our already strong staff. So we're excited about these two additions and recommend approval.
Can we do separately?
Comment on the librarian position here. I'm sure this candidate has great qualifications. 64,000 wage only. As a librarian, media specialist, I mean, we can find one that was less expensive, I guess.
Our charge is to try to bring in the best candidates that we can find for our kids. Nikki is absolutely amazing. She's serving as the vice president of WEAPTA, which is a board that's a statewide recognized position for delivering library services and informational technology services across the state. She is a leader in her field, and I'd be honored to work with her. Unfortunately, I won't have that opportunity, but it's hard to replace a Carrie Cabot or a Chris McCoy, but a Mickey Upenow can rival that.
With the last name, I can say they're great people. If any relationship with the force we have in the libraries, both up here and down at the elementary school, I guess my question is why we need a top of the line candidate, I guess.
I want the very best for your kids. I don't want second or third best. I want the best I can get for your kids.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
I was somebody that works with her, before I even knew about it, he said, you're crazy if you don't. He said she runs 3 schools right now, like surrounding schools, it sounds like. And said that she's amazing.
So what's she going to do for us? To explain to me, where's she going to take us?
I would start with the strategic plan and a lot of the things that we want to implement at the elementary level around digital literacy and global citizenship and bringing back some of the things that we had lost when we lost Carrie. I think we'll be able to take the idea of instructional encore rounds and take it to the next level of really supporting teachers, more like an instructional coach would, but more around the ability to do library services and technology better in the classroom. I just think you'll see everything that Carrie had started continue to grow and blossom.
She has more credentials than Carrie had.
Correct, yes. Yeah. Carrie was fantastic. She laid a great foundation for the work that is started to be done. And I think Nikki is just the person to come in and continue to grow that program into something really special. It's, again, a nationally recognized PLC school. And it really kind of humbles me when statewide people want to come in and be part of that school. So it's going to be special.
We're going to vote separately.
I think we should, unless somebody wants to make the motion as a consent.
I came in the night, I wasn't going to vote for the elementary school library teacher, but you changed my mind, so I support it.
Can we vote separately?
Yeah, you sure can.
Somebody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve both together.
I don't want to do that.
Kelly didn't make the motion.
I make a motion that we approve the elementary fifth grade position.
Well, there was a motion.
Oh, God dang it.
I just, nobody has a second.
Don't you dare.
Do you want to withdraw your motion? Nobody seconded it. All right,
Or someone could second.
or somebody could. Any second?
Kelly, you go.
I see two.
No, I did not.
I make a motion that we approve the elementary fifth grade teacher position.
I'll second
Any discussion? Call a question, Angela, please.
Gunlaw,
Yes.
Lindsay,
it. Yes.
Stefas,
Yes.
Bush,
Yes.
Chambers.
Yes.
Dunn,
Yes.
Basting.
Yes. Okay, now let's go on make a motion for the library.
Larry, go ahead.
I make a motion to approve the library. Do you have a question though?
I'll second.
What was Carrie Cabot? What was her wage?
I would have to look, Larry, I'm sorry.
About 54,000. Pretty good guess. Any other discussion?
What are we paying for total?
Well, I would assume they would have been relatively close with benefits, but, call the question, please.
Stefas,
Yes.
Bush,
Yes.
Chambers.
Yes.
Dunn,
Yes.
Gunlaw,
Abstain.
Lindsay,
Yes.
Basting.
Yes. Okay, let's move into business services, credit card.
Thanks for coming.
Make a motion.
Are we talking about the credit cards? Well, I just wanted to ask, how much is reimbursement for mileage?
It's the state.
54.5.
Okay,
And
so
it
it's standard.
fluctuates.
Oh, does
It
it?
fluctuates.
Well, it's
No,
not like
it does
that.
not. It's a set dollar amount for the year.
Okay, so that's.
Federal.
Since when? Because when I did do it, it fluctuated.
Just for you.
Federal standard rates,
Okay,
the fiscal
yeah,
year,
that's what I wondered.
it's set at 54.5 currently for 2018.
Somebody want to make a motion to accept the credit card bill statement?
I'll make a motion that we accept the credit card bill statement.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Okay, now let's discuss it. Let's do it.
Wasn't too much going on.
What kind of advantage do you get with Amazon Marketplace?
There is a percentage kickback when we go through the Prime account and.
Sure.
And I'm not sure, maybe the elementary might be using it at some levels, and I don't think it's used very heavily in the middle school, high school levels.
I think Chris McCoy uses it quite a bit for her purchases in the library.
I don't know the actual amount, so maybe we can investigate, whether it's the actual kickback, but to the point that we can get any kind of a percent back in terms of cash or ability to purchase, we would leverage that.
Yeah, I wonder, do you have a 255,000 rewards there in Visa? Is that something in cash in or something? Seemed like a large number, 255,000 reward points.
Yeah, at some intervals, we do cash that in for actually, reductions on the next bill, those kinds of things. So it's probably time.
Can you do it for that?
Um,
For reduction on bill?
Yeah, we'll probably.
Wow.
One of the things that I can ask
Hotels.
Marcia is if we can just build it in so that either at a certain threshold, we automatically use it up, or we do it at certain intervals of time and just use whatever we have. But yeah, there is definitely an incentive for that. So I will work with her to get on a schedule with that.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Let's call a question.
Gunlaw,
Yes.
Lindsay,
Yes.
Stefas,
Yes.
Bush,
Yes.
Chambers.
Yes.
Dunn,
Yes.
Basting.
Yes. Okay, so make a motion to approve the bills payable.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Okay, is there any discussion?
Yeah. The floor scrubber.
No, that's item 3.
Oh, darn
Item
it.
2.
Darn it. Sorry. Okay, we'll wait. I'll wait.
What does CC6 provide us?
That's the My Learning Plan, the evaluation system. It's a flat fee per number of users that we pay for
So
to
we
have
just-
that electronic portfolio.
That CC developed that, so they get to
Yeah.
bill separately than
Exactly.
CC3. Okay.
With net costs, $77.50, is that an annual charge?
I think that's quarterly for WISNet. That's Internet Service Provider.
That is, explain to the board what that is again.
So the Internet Service Provider is the company that actually literally provides the internet for the district. That is just the service fee, not the fee to transport it. And so we currently pay nothing to transport it into the high school. We currently pay charter to transport it to the elementary. We have a study ongoing right now as to what it would cost for us to own our own pipeline from the high school to the elementary. But in some way, you have to get the internet from somewhere in order to get down the pipeline. And we have currently 1 gigabyte coming into the district and 850 meg going from the district down to the elementary, so just shy of a gigabyte. And that has been sufficient. We've had very little latency or what would be downtime or slow loading of material, which is important in a lesson for kids that have 30 Chromebooks sitting on the same access point running video to not have a slowdown. So
That's just one of the expenses, having the building separate.
yeah,
The hidden expenses. All right, what I thought it was the internet provider, the app that we use for searching for superintendent, is that right?
Oh, we can.
Okay.
Yeah. So, very close.
Where was that? We can?
Yeah, I remember.
Was the
Yeah.
sewer issue?
The what?
Where was the sewer issue at? Or the drainage issue?
The drainage issues at the elementary.
The regular drainage issue?
I believe that was the one that was just spilling out above the playground, where there was a broken, well, there's two problems we've encountered recently. One was over at the elementary on the hillside, where there was a broken or smashed pipe that was forcing water to spill out before it would run all the way down beyond the playground. It was going over the top of the wall and washing out the playground area. So that's been since dug out and replaced and is functioning properly now. You'll see a little bit of reconfiguration of the wall area there. The other was, there was a crushed drain tile pipe on the irrigation system of the football field, but I don't believe that was any cost to the district because I think that was something that the contractor that crushed it remediated, and I have not seen it. Those are the two that I know of.
Okay, any other questions? Let's call the question.
Chambers.
Yes.
Dunn.
Yes.
Gunlaw.
Yes.
Lindsay.
Yes.
Stefas.
Yes.
Bush.
Yes.
Basting.
Okay, let's go into the floor scrubber.
Roger approached me earlier last week and stated that they had a floor scrubber that was in need of replacement. He was in the process of getting costs. He had one quote which was in the $14,000 range. He was trying to secure a second quote from another vendor. This is, I believe, for the middle school, high school building. We have replaced one down at the elementary in the past. The cost not to exceed 15 is consistent with the cost of a floor scrubber. Mitchell is working with. Roger, is there anything else you could share that I don't?
This particular machine is over 20 years old and they can no longer get parts for it. Elf has done a fantastic job keeping it running, and at this point in time, they just can't get replacement parts anymore. So it's outlived, even the salesman said, I can't believe you've had it this long.
What kind of warranties those things come with?
Well, I'll tell you what, the guy said, you'll never get 20 years out of the next one you buy from us. I think they're just buying them to be obsolete and, probably 10 to 15 years at max.
are they obsolete just because the motors just don't last that long, or is the technology advancing that rapidly, or?
It's wear and tear on, and I don't know that it's the motor, I don't know that they've had to replace the motor, they've replaced the batteries that you charge it up to run it all the time, and then you replace the vacuum pump to pull up the moisture that you're scrubbing, you're putting down a solution and scrubbing, and you're drawing it up so it's not sitting on the floor. All of those pieces start to wear out, and you just can't get replacement parts for something that's 20+ years old now.
I did, Roger was in the doorway when I walked in, and I asked him if he had his original budget, if this would be one of the items he would use it for, and he said yes. If that, he understands that. If
I
we
was
were
wondering if
considering,
that was, I was wondering if that was in the budget.
if we were considering reinstating his budget.
Well, part of what he cut, you said, I mean, his original budget, was this an item that was cut?
Well, it was an item in the number that was cut.
Oh, I see.
He doesn't have. Yeah, because he didn't know he needed to replace it.
Right,
Yeah,
gotcha.
so this was one of those surprises. I mean, after 20 years.
Yeah, it happens.
Okay, somebody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion. I'll second.
Okay, a motion and a second. Any other comments?
He was going to get a second quote. That was what he's in the process of. Do you know if there's any updates to that?
He did not share anything with me today.
So we're on,
So the motion
up
is-
to 15,000.
The motion is not to
Hopefully.
exceed 15, best quote available.
Okay.
Okay. Any question on that?
It is financial, so it's best be to do a roll call.
Call the question, please.
Dunn,
Yes.
Gunma,
Yes.
Lindsay,
Yes.
Stefas,
Yes.
Bush,
Yes.
Chambers.
Yes.
Basting.
Yes. Okay, approval of the ductwork at the elementary.
The ductwork at the elementary, in my tenure, and Roger would even go back further since the new addition was built, has never had a thorough cleaning. A company that has and has been familiar with working in our building at the elementary, Dirty Ducks, performs basically a vacuuming out, if you would, of the air vent system, so that we have better HVAC quality. What brought this upon us is in the pre-K room, when they start the system, the exhaust system up in the morning, it sends a puff of dust that kind of settles down over the top of stuff, kids and desks and tables and so forth. And it's a concern, and it is something that we believe is probably the best interest of once every 30 years. They can clean out the air vents, right? So the proposal from Dirty Ducks to do that mitigation is $58.75. It is over $5,000, so it does require board approval. It just seems wise that we spend some dollars in maintenance to make sure we've got good air quality throughout the building, so I would recommend approval.
Was this a one-time observation of this dust coming out, or it happens every morning?
It seems to be happening frequently. I've heard of a repeated report of the dust that kind of comes out in a puff when the air system turns on. I don't know to what, I have not personally visually seen it happen, so I can't speak to how bad of a cloud it is, but Roger would confirm that it does exist and is the one that brought the proposal forward.
I know it's not a huge expense, but just to clarify, if we end up remodeling that building a year from now, this is not something that Roger feels like should wait, but once he found out it was happening, he was pretty concerned.
He was concerned enough to bring me forward the proposal, and I think the pre-K teachers are concerned enough to say we don't want to have another year of just, dust in the air blowing through it, and that's the ones we know about or can see. I'm not sure what we're not seeing in it, so.
I actually asked him that, Aaron, and he said those ducts should stay in caps. They won't get cleaned otherwise.
Oh, the ducts are going to stay in place for the
That's
remodel?
that's what he said, his understanding of the plan. was those ducts.
My concern then is after this construction gets done, will the construction people clean those ducts, or we will have to do that?
That's a good question.
That's a good question.
Because after any new build that I've ever done, I've always had somebody come in, even after a new build, come in and clean ducts.
I'll ask that question and get back to the board.
Is there a timeline on this?
This is one of those that if you say yes tonight, tomorrow morning we're on the phone and they can get it done before school starts. They've got a very tight window. They were preferring to get an answer last week. We told them the earliest we could respond would be after board action tonight. So Tuesday morning we'd have it done the week of the 24th, I believe.
Well, I think we should figure we need to be health concerns, with that.
Do you want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the expense of cleaning the ducts.
Okay.
DUCTS.
Dr. Dunn, second that. Dr. Lindsay, motion, Dr. Dunn, second, and you can call the question.
Lindsay,
Yes.
Stefas,
Yes.
Bush,
Yes.
Chambers,
Yes.
Dunn,
Yes.
Gunlaw,
Yes.
Basting.
Yes. Sorry, did anybody have anything else they wanted to say about that? It's too late. Okay, superintendent's message.
I just wanted to take a moment and share this is probably my last regular board meeting. And I just wanted to take a moment to say thank you to the board members that were part of the original hiring committee. Mike Mitchell, Mo May Grimm, Lisa Hay, Dick Austin, Larry Steffes, Bob Oberhauser, Matt Lindsay, and then there was also 2 other selection committees that took a chance on me and gave me the first opportunity to be a superintendent. And it's been a fantastic opportunity to serve. I've had an amazing leadership team. Excuse me, it's just tough. 7 good years. I want to thank the elementary principals, Aaron Paulskill, Brad Brogan, Matt Reddick, middle school principal Vicki Dahl, Mitch Wainwright, Dixie Dempsey, and Joel Doy as part of the leadership team. And then fantastic to work with. I have a support staff that I leave behind that really takes care of the day-to-day stuff. And I want to thank Roger Paulskill, Marcia Jelland, Jean Flanagan, and Angie Schubert for just taking good care of me and allowing me to be visionary, to be somebody that can plan for the district and try to do the great work. When I arrived 7 years ago, the district was academically underperforming. Teacher salaries have been frozen for 2 years. We were in a structural deficit of over $1 million. And 7 years later, I can depart knowing that academically we're outperforming our counterparts. We've been able to close that structural deficit and stay fiscally underneath that revenue cap year in and year out with a balanced budget. We have a fund balance that's higher today than when I arrived. We have a mill rate that's lower today than when I arrived. And we have a nationally recognized elementary school. We have it's been a great opportunity for me to serve these past 7 years. I have grown tremendously professionally, and I've fallen in love with this district and I've fallen in love with this community. I plan to come back and visit often. And my biggest hope is that as people look back at my legacy, they could say that I served you well. I was not perfect, but I did give you my very best every day. So thank you for that.
One of the more veteran board members, when Luke arrived, we were in a quandary. Average, below average. Knew that wasn't good for all of the students in this building. And personally, I thank you for doing what you have done, bringing our district up from that area. And I know it hasn't been easy. We've talked about this before. It's been some late nights. I've also had some sleepless nights, more sleepless nights lately, and after board meetings, that is. So again, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
And everything was for the students of this district.
Thanks.
And Mitch and Vicki, it'll carry on. You're both great educators. Thank you for taking care of our kids too. And Mitch, if this does fall your way, it won't be easy. There will be arguments also. For yourself and all.
Thank you.
We'll carry the torch. We'll continue to carry the torch.
Greatest gift was forgiveness.
Well, before we adjourn, I just want to remind everybody, we have another registration day tomorrow, so if you have the opportunity to stop by and have a picture taken, to do so between 10 and 1, 3 and 6. We are also having a new teacher orientation next Thursday, so you're welcome to join us for lunch at Grey Dog Deli at, I think it's, I gave you packets, that's what was in front of you when you sat down here. We'll have lunch at noon to 12:45 at Grey Dog Deli next Thursday, which is the 23rd. Yep. And then we'll have our back to school with teachers, all staff, on Monday the 27th. You're all invited to that at, starting at 8 a.m.
Angie, would it be okay to ask you to maybe send out by email?
Certainly, I will do that.
And that
Yes.
way, all that stuff that went through my brain, I'll see
Definitely.
somewhere written.
But just so you had it here, and then also, we've had several, unfortunately, deaths, and we've sent flowers on behalf of the school district and Board of Education, and we're currently at a shortfall of $110 in paying the floral arrangements. So I know I've asked for some contributions recently from many of you, but again.
Significantly delinquent on my payments, I'm gonna go out and get it for the past 3 years. I don't ever bring money.
What's the interest rate
I don't
on
ever
that?
bring money to the meetings, and then it's. But it comes up once a year.
Are we adjourned? And I can just run out to my vehicle.
Did I just say that out loud?
Way to say that.
I don't pay my bills?
We need to then adjourn, yes.
I'll make a motion here.
Okay, Everett, Larry, seconds, okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
It's aye.
8:40.